Hi, welcome to Sefaria. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to make a source sheet on Sefaria. Just one note in advance, you'll need to be logged into Sefaria in order to create and save a source sheet. You can see from the upper right-hand corner of my screen that there's no prompt asking me to log in because I already am logged in, so if you want to follow along at home, you'll need to do that as a first step. The main menu, the Sefaria navigation panel, gives me the option to select source sheets. And from there, I'll click the purple button to start a new source sheet. I'll click here and type a different source title. We'll call this Demo Video Source Sheet. And now I'm ready to add my first text. The plus button allows you to add sources from within Sefaria or from outside Sefaria. So we'll start with Add Source. And here again, I have two options. I can start typing the name of the source that I want to add, and usually Sefaria will eventually guess what that source is. So let's say Genesis 1:1. I can hit enter or click add this source, and now I've got the first source on my source sheet. I'll click the green save button, which you do need to do once. After that, the source sheet will update automatically. Let's add another source. Add source. This time I'll try browse sources. And this might work better if you don't know the exact citation or don't know exactly how much of a text you want to add. In this case, I'll add from the Talmud, just a small piece of text. I'm clicking through the menu, and then I can simply click and drag to select how much text I want to add, and click OK when you're ready. And now I've added another source to my source sheet. If I like, I can also add a text from outside Sefaria, either one that is formatted in the same bilingual way as these sources, or something that is not formatted that way. An outside text can be anything that can be copied and pasted. So something from another text, another database of Jewish texts. It can be something that you have saved as a Word document or elsewhere on your computer. It can be something from Wikipedia or some other website, a news website. Anything you can copy and paste, you can copy and paste into a Sefaria source sheet. I could also add a comment to my source sheet. So for example, it might be that I want to give my students some questions. Oops. And perhaps these questions should appear down here at the bottom of the source sheet. Or possibly I want them to appear at the top, in which case I can simply click and drag and move it to the top. And any source on Sefaria, any source on your source sheet, you can click and move around, so that you can always change the order of sources and comments as well. So my comment could be a question, it could be some guidance that I want to give my students in advance of their reading or following their reading, and that's the Add Comment button. I can also add media. So if there's a YouTube video or a recording, anything that I want to add that I'd like to embed in my sheet, perhaps, for example, a recording of myself reading a piece of Gemara or reading some psukim to give them a sense of what it sounds like, to give them greater understanding of it. Perhaps I'd like to ask my students to create their own recordings so that I can hear what it sounds like when they read these sources, and they can then create a YouTube video or an MP3 file and embed it in the source sheet. Any of those are options with our Add Media button. In our Options menu, you've got some choices to make about how you want to format your source sheet. We'll start with that. So you can opt out of divine names, get rid of Shemot. You can number your sources, you can box your sources, you can add B'siyata Dishmaya. And again, if you want to click and drag and move your sources, Sefaria will renumber them. And if you add something as an outside source, Sefaria will note that that is a source and will number the sources accordingly. In the Options menu, you can also make a copy of a source sheet. So I might want another copy, view copy, because maybe I want to create two different versions of this shiur, one for one grade and one for another, or one for one class and one for another. I can also at any time change the language of the source sheet. So right now I'm in bilingual, but I can click up here to make the source sheet all Hebrew, all English, Hebrew English again, but I can change where I see the sources. So right now they're side by side, but I can make it so that they're one on top of the other. And if they're side by side, I can change which side of the screen I want to view them on. So at any given time, you could change your mind about how you want your source sheet to look. And again, I created this copy of the source sheet. If I want to go back out to my source sheets, just click on source sheets, and you can see I still have that first source sheet there. Video demo, I'll go back to that. This options menu also gives you the ability to embed the sheet. So if you have a class blog or a school website or a class website, if you use a learning management system, any of those, it's easy to embed a source sheet from Sefaria into that other site so that students can actually scroll through the source sheet without ever leaving the site that you have them on. You can click here to delete a sheet. You can click here to edit sheet tags. So if I want to tag this demo, and maybe I also want to tag it with some other tags. I could tag it Genesis, I could tag it video, and then again, when I go back out to my source sheets, you can see that they're organized by tag. So I can keep my source sheets all in one place, all where they belong. You can see I have several demo tagged videos, demo tagged source sheets, and I can find them easily because they're grouped together. On this options menu, you can also choose to print, and the print menu will also allow you to export your source sheet to a PDF. That's over here. It looks slightly different depending on your operating system, but you should always have the option to export your source sheet to a PDF if you choose. Looking again at the sources themselves, you also have the option to edit any source that appears on your sheet. So if I click into any source, I get this text editor box. I can change the alignment, I can bold, I can underline, I can change the font color, I can highlight a source, the actual font, the size. I can do whatever I want with this text. I can add in a link from outside. These sources are yours to do with as you wish. Maybe I don't like the English translation. I'd like to change it. I can put this word in italics. So clicking into any source allows you to manipulate it as you wish. In addition, you have a hover over menu. And starting from the left, this button allows you to edit the source title. Maybe I want to call this My First Source. I have the plus menu, which allows you to add a subsource, just adding a source that's indented under the one before it. Add comment. I can add a comment that's attached. So here's the question for this source. Also in that hover over menu, I can use, there we go, the Add All Connections button. So pretty much just what it sounds like. This piece of Megillah has Rashi and the Rosh, so maybe I want to see all the Rashis on here. And I'll click Add, and we've added all the Rashis on that piece of Gemara to the source sheet. You can see also with Breshit, Add All Connections. So there's a lot of connections on Genesis 1:1. And again, if I just want to teach this first pasuk of Breshit with, let's say, the Ramban, so I'll click that box, add, and now 5 sources have been added to Sefaria. The hover over menu will also let you reset the source text. So going back to the way it was, getting rid of any colors or edits you might have made. You can delete the source, remove it from your source sheet. You can copy it to another sheet. You've discovered this is a source that you're going to want to use in multiple classes. You can copy it to another sheet. We'll give you the option to select any source sheet that you've previously created or start a new source sheet. And finally, you can change the source layout language. In other words, instead of controlling the whole sheet, you could decide that you want a different configuration of languages for each source. So perhaps when it comes to the Gemara, you want it only in Hebrew, but for Tanakh, you want it in Hebrew and English or just English. So you have that option to change each individual source. In the options menu, there is also an option called sharing, and this is perhaps our most flexible feature in terms of allowing teachers and students to work together in the classroom or outside the classroom in Beit Midrash time or for homework, to work together on creating source sheets. So the sharing option will allow me to keep the source sheet private. Only people with the direct link can view the source sheet. Or I can make it public, make it listed for Sefaria users, and then anyone browsing Sefaria can find and view your source sheet. Or I can change it to anyone can add. So anyone browsing Sefaria can find and view and add sources and comments to your sheet. I can put up a source sheet called Teaching Sefer Breshit to 10th grade, and put it out there. I could put a comment at the top saying, teachers everywhere, I'd love to hear your feedback, and get people to just add sources and comments that way. I could change it to anyone can add unlisted, and this is what I might do if I'm creating an assignment for my students. So my students can all view my source sheet and they can add sources and comments to the source sheet. So for example, I might ask my students some questions. I might ask them to respond to a specific text either by adding text of their own or by adding their thoughts about a particular question, and they can do that and create a shared document on Sefaria. And the same with anyone can edit. This does allow people to make any changes that they want, but it means that, for example, you could assign a piece of text and tell your students, I want you to punctuate this text. I want you to put all the verbs in red and all the nouns in yellow. Or I want you to put everything Hashem says in green and everything Moshe says in blue, or whatever it is. And then anyone can edit unlisted. That doesn't post it on the site directly, but anyone who has the link can then make those changes. And every Sefaria source sheet gets its own unique URL, which you can then share with anyone you wish. Just to give you an example of what a collaborative source sheet might look like, this is a recent homework assignment that I assigned to my 12th grade Talmud students, and you'll be able to see I embedded a video of myself reading the Gemara. I broke down the Gemara. This is a piece of Chazara in preparation for an exam that we'll be having. And then I asked my students to add notes, both saying what they were confused about, what was clear to them, responding to one another. And when we came back to class the next day after the homework assignment was due, I put this document up on the smartboard and we went through it piece by piece, discussing both the reactions they had to one another's comments, and also making sure that we clarified everything that anyone was confused about. So that's just an example of how you could use Sefaria's collaborative source sheets to create an in-class document, to assign homework, to really give students a way of interacting with the texts. We'll go back to our video demo source sheet. In the sharing menu on Sefaria, or in the options menu, we also have the option for creating group source sheets. This is not yet a public option, but any class, any institution that wants a group is welcome to contact me. And what a group essentially does is gather together all the source sheets of a particular class or a particular organization and create a semi-private space for those people. So only people who are invited into that group can view the source sheets in that group. So for example, here is Hillel International's page on Sefaria. They have a number of source sheets. Some of these are publicly available. Many of them are not, and are available only to those who are signed up for the Hillel Educators group. And if they want to know where is the official Hillel source sheet on whatever topic, they can come to this page. And again, all these source sheets are available to them. They're freely reusable. And we've begun to see schools doing that, and individual classes as well, if they just want to store source sheets all in one place where everyone can access them. Going back to our demo video source sheet, that covers the sharing menu and the group options. And just to point out, you could print this source sheet. You could give it to your students as a worksheet if you've created questions and space for them to answer it. You could give it to them as something for them to read in class or in Chavruta. You can also be distributing it to students digitally, again, via learning management system, via email, through whatever system you're using, and allowing them to interact with it that way. So that's part of the flexibility that Sefaria offers for your students to be able to interact with Sefaria source sheets in different ways. In brief, I'll just mention that we have a number of other features in Sefaria, some of which are still under development, but which I encourage you to explore. We have our Link Explorer, which takes advantage of the kind of data that we have on Sefaria and makes it visually available. So this is all the connections between the Talmud and the Tanakh. And we hope in the future to do more of these kinds of projects, really showing how texts are related to one another's. We hope to be able to do maps and timelines and other features that will help to visually explore the text that we have in our database. And we also have a discussions feature, which is also still experimental, but an example of the kind of thing that we plan to build in the future. And this allows you, it's very similar to our collaborative source sheets, but it allows you to take a text and create a space for discussion on the side of the text. And adding to this discussion, I can simply, if I'm the student, I can add my comments here, and this can be part of what a teacher assigns. So these are all examples to get you thinking about the kinds of things that Sefaria might build in the future. And please feel free to be in touch with any questions, comments, or feedback. My email is Sarah, S-A-R-A, @sefaria.org. Thanks so much.